everybody, and welcome back to the Kelly Green Hour. As we, as well as the Eagles, have gotten through the bye week, and we are set for Monday Night Football in Green Bay against the Green Bay Packers in what is a wild card rematch from last season's run to Super Bowl 59. I'm your host, LG Harrell, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Connor Donald. Connor, what's going on, man?
Not much, man. It's good to be back. I mean, obviously some technical difficulties have done us in over the last couple weeks, so we're hoping that this episode is going to go off so much better. And it's great to be back, and we're going to talk trade deadline. We're going to get into this Green Bay Packers matchup that obviously already out in the social media sphere is pretty aggressive. There's a lot of back and forth between the fan bases, so it's already building up to be a bit of a bitter rivalry, maybe mini rivalry, bitter matchup, at least for the foreseeable future.
Well, the Packers are the team that were at the lead of the ban of the tush push. So again, my call is for one full drive of just the tush push, but that's just me. Before we jump into our discussion today, as always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LJHarrell54, and follow the Eagles Pinpull Network on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and wherever you get your podcasts at Eagles Pinpull Network. And if you're joining us live, let us know your thoughts in the chat on this upcoming game, on the trade deadline, the moves that the Eagles made. Were you satisfied? Was there another move you wanted them to make? And let us know your predictions for the Eagles-Packers Monday night game. So, Connor, you mentioned we'll start off with the trade deadline. The Eagles made 3 trades, 4 moves if we include Brandon Graham being signed out of retirement. They traded for Michael Carter, slot corner from the Jets. They sent a draft pick and John Mechie. They traded for Jair Alexander, who I wanted the Eagles to pick up over the summer when he got released by Green Bay from Baltimore for a swap of draft picks. And then the big one, they traded for Jalen Phillips on Monday, defensive end from the Miami Dolphins, who played under Vic Fangio for a year. And if there's somebody that is excited to play in Philly, it is Jalen Phillips, all the things that he has said. What are your initial thoughts on the moves that the Eagles made, and are they enough to help the defensive side of the football, help the cornerback situation, help the the defensive line get after the quarterback? What are your thoughts?
I mean, I think that the Jalen Phillips move is obviously the biggest of the moves. We knew we had to make a move at edge. Jalen Phillips was a name that was tossed out there for much of the month leading up to the trade deadline. It makes sense. I mean, you watched some of the film this year. He's definitely not as fast as he was coming out, but he's obviously had 2 major leg injuries that have probably cost him a lot of his speed and a lot of his natural gifted ability that he had coming out. But obviously there needed to be a major improvement. You couldn't continue to roll out the edge rushers that we had. So I like it. Plus, you get the opportunity to potentially sign him back next year if he shows you a little bit of something. Or in a worst case, he's part of the compensatory pick formula. So somebody's going to probably pay Jalen Phillips. We know edge rushers get paid. That could end up being, if as fruitful as a 4th or 5th round compensatory pick, because we know that Howie may not be as aggressive this offseason in free agency because he's got a lot of extensions to give out internally to some key players here. So it'll be interesting to see how this goes, but at least you get a good few weeks to see and feel out Jalen Phillips. I mean, I think it's an improvement. I think it's a necessary improvement. It gets Jalix Hunt back to maybe less of a role. Maybe, it gets obviously gets Patrick Johnson is off the team now. We had seen obviously enough of him, but it kind of gives some more parity across him, especially with Nolan Smith coming back. You're not forcing 70, 80, 90% of snaps towards guys that still need to develop and still need to work on the craft for their game. So, having Nolan Smith back, the Jalen Phillips deal, and plus Brandon Graham are going to be massive for this team, for this edge room. Even if Brandon Graham's only out there 25% of snaps, the energy that he brings and the veteran leadership, which leads me into the Jair Alexander, my reaction to that one. I think that Howie realized he didn't have enough veterans in the room And he decided this was the opportunity to go out there, get some vets, get Brandon Graham out of retirement. Probably won't play him a whole lot. Get Jair Alexander, who's a guy he kind of talked about. He's going to bring some energy. He's going to bring some swag, some things that we have missed a lot in the past when we moved on from a guy like Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. And you could tell at points this season that we're missing a bit of that swag, that leadership to kick this defense in the butt to keep them going sometimes in games. Some of the really stupid penalties that this defense has taken generally can be helped by having a leader, a veteran leader on the sideline saying, get your head in the game, don't make those decisions. So I think Jair Alexander, I don't necessarily know if he's going to play a lot. I don't think he's Jair Alexander of the last, 2-3 years prior. That the injuries have caught up to him, age has caught up to him. I think that he can help, but I think out of the gun, Jacorian Bennett's going to get the opportunity at that CB2 role. Michael Carter, I think, is more of a, if things really are still going south at CB2 later in the season, we have a nickel corner that can cover and we can maybe move Cooper DeJean out. I think it just allows for a lot more versatility at the interior of this defense, because Michael Carter also played a number of snaps on the defensive line as a safety in the box. He and at the nickel corner. So, I think Michael Carter feels more like a move that is made with just some backup planning in mind just in case. But long-winded answer, but that was my reaction to those deals.
I think Michael Carter is actually potentially going to see time at safety, because I get you want Andrew Makuba out there, just go through the growing pains, but he is out of position a lot, and I don't want DeJean being on the outside or back at safety. I want him to be in the middle, being in the middle of all the work and where most of the plays take place. So that's why I want him to stay at slot. So it wouldn't shock me if Carter does play some safety. Maybe, if they wanted to, it's also tough because you don't want to take like the linebacker. You're not going to take Bond or Dean off the field. We're already taking Campbell off the field more now that Dean is healthy and Dean is the starter at backer next to Bond. But say if you had to go 5, 6, 7 defensive backs for some odd reason, Makuba can fill in at maybe like the Michael Jenkins type of role, play him at safety, or play him like in the linebacker, the hard hitting guy. So it'd be interesting to see what Vic Fangio decides to do, just putting everybody together and all the pieces that he has. As I mentioned, I wanted Jair Alexander when he got released in June. It's shocking that, I don't know if shocking is the right word, but it's maybe telling that, the Ravens defense was really bad and he couldn't get on the field. But, the Ravens didn't have anything bad to say about him. They loved his energy. They loved him in the locker room. It just couldn't get on the field for some reason. But you have Nate Wiggins, who's a young, good corner. Marlon Humphrey, who's a vet, but he is still pretty good. So, and he doesn't play in the slot. So it's just tough to get him on the field. Again, kind of surprising, especially with the way that defense had been playing for a long time. Is it, like you mentioned, is he the same cornerback that he was, 4 years ago? Probably, most likely not. Like you mentioned, injuries have taken a toll on him, but I do think that he potentially is going to start on Monday. I really do think that we're going to see him out there, and with the added advantage that he's facing his former team. If that doesn't give you the motivation, and that doesn't amp you up, then nothing will. Practices this week when they were going over special team stuff, the guys that were working with Christian Parker, usually the starters, it was Quinyon Mitchell and it was Jair Alexander along with Coop. So that I might be looking into it too much, but it wouldn't shock me if we saw Jair Alexander out there starting on Monday night. And there are injuries to the Packers on the offensive side of the ball. Like Golden is questionable. Who knows if he's going to play? But the Packers don't have that true, I deem it, a true number one receiver. Tucker Kraft was probably that, and he's out with an ACL. So it'll be, this might be a game where you don't have to keep moving Quinyon Mitchell all over the place. You can put Quinyon on one side, put Jair on the other side, and see how it goes. And with Jacorian Bennett back, if Alexander just doesn't perform up the snub, put Bennett in there. We also have Ringo. We also have we have numbers there guys that have played. I want to see Jair Alexander out there. I want to see what it looks like. And it was a low risk and it's high reward play, because if he is any good, I mean, I'm not saying he's going to be the all pro that he was when he was with Green Bay, but if his better is better than Jackson and Ringo, and you don't have to move Coop anywhere, you can leave Coop where he's at. This defense only gets better. When it comes to Jalen Phillips, I mean, having him, and if he's able, now the one issue he had in Miami was actually, sacking the quarterback, so he fits right in with the Eagles defensive line. But if he can get after the quarterback, force Jordan Love and Jared Goff and Dak and all the quarterbacks that we're going to be facing in this gauntlet coming up, if they can force them in the early throws, that'll help the secondary out as well, because they're not going to have to cover for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 seconds. The quarterback's going to have to get rid of the ball because of Jalen Phillips and Nolan Smith are coming out. I'm going to be intrigued with where they line them up, because Nolan and Jalen play on the same side of the defensive line. They both play on the defensive line's left side, which is the offensive line's right side. So are either of them going to move? Who knows? But just getting Nolan Smith back while he wasn't good early in the season. He had 4 sacks last year in the playoffs, 2 against the Packers. Just, we know the ability that he has, and if he's able to turn it on, that's like getting a draft or making a trade, because he's been out the last 4 or 5 games. So, I mean, and you mentioned BG, he's probably going to play 10, maybe 15 snaps a game. Who knows? But when Zadarius Smith retired, just getting that veteran leadership back into the locker room, and it being BG, and we know that something that Nick Sirianni had said all the time, like last year, every workplace needs a BG. And it doesn't matter what line of work you're in, and he can only help. And I think that that's going to be big for like Jalen Carter, because if BG was on the field week 1, I don't think Jalen Carter spits at Dak and doesn't get kicked out of that game. I just think that all the personal foul penalties that he was getting, I don't know if all that happens with BG around. So we'll see if that if he's affected by that. But I think that just bringing these guys in, it can only help the defense. I don't know if it can hurt them. And again, when it comes to a guy like Jair Alexander, you gave up a 6th round pick, I think. So like, if it doesn't work, cut him. Like, it's a low risk. You're not paying him much. It's a 1-year deal or whatever it is, and Baltimore's paid a lot of it. So just let's see what he can do and get him out there to play. And I wouldn't be shocked if he's out there starting on Monday night.
Yeah, I agree. Let's say you make a very similar point to me in regards to just getting some veteran leaders in there, getting something back in this defense that seems to be lacking. We do know it's one of the youngest defenses in the league. We knew it was going to be coming in. We knew over the past 2 off seasons we lost a lot of key pieces on the defensive side of the ball. And there's obviously going to be growing pains when you're the youngest defense in the league. It's not just going to, and I mean, given that we are the youngest defense in the league and we're performing to the degree that we're performing, I mean, that speaks volumes. If you just need a couple veterans in-house who play very limited snaps, but have a sway in how these players play and bring a different level of hype and excitement to this defense that may have been lacking at times this season, that's a massive benefit. That's sometimes what the key and core job of veteran pieces like a Brandon Graham and a Jair Alexander. I agree with you. Jair Alexander, we haven't seen a ton from Ja'Cory Bennett. When he had his opportunities, he looked pretty decent, but I mean, he's only played like not even 50 snaps this season. So obviously you had to have a backup plan, but I feel like that Jair Alexander wasn't necessarily picked up to run the CB2 spot. I feel like Ja'Cory Bennett's still maybe the guy because he's under contract next year. He's a guy that you're going to have on the team, and maybe you want to see what you have, because Ringo, obviously Jackson's going to be gone at the end of this year. Ringo, what is Ringo? It doesn't feel like he's really become that CB2 or that guy that you can have confidence in to be that CB2, but he can be a depth corner for your team. So I think that a decision's probably going to have to be made on Ja'Cory Bennett, which makes me inclined to believe that they're going to play him. But Jair Alexander in this game looks really good against his old team because, like you said, there isn't really like a stud wide receiver for this Green Bay team. This is a chance to put him out there, go out there, say, we picked your brain a bit on this team and on what this offense does. Go out there, take advantage of the matchup, and maybe if he does super well, he plays the next week. If it's a mixed bag, maybe they give Ja'Cory Bennett the shot the next week. It'll be interesting to see how they work that CB2 room. But obviously, for now, they've tried to answer it with quantity over quality, which seems to be the way that they've kind of worked at the CB room in the past. I remember many off seasons where we used quantity over quality for DBs in Philadelphia. We do have quality in the CB1 and the NB, but the CB2 remains a major question mark, and certain question marks remain, like you said, at the safety position. So they're going to throw some things at the wall and see if it sticks because, like you said, I mean, I would hope it can't get any worse. I mean, if it gets any worse, it's just, Jackson and Ringo going back out there, and we already know what we got in them.
Yeah, and you do want to figure it out. I mean, while Green Bay is talented offensively, they don't have, like a Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, type, Jordan Addison types. But, the Lions do. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams. Dallas does. CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens. You want to be able to figure that out, obviously sooner rather than later. Before we jump into the game, though, looking at some of the other trades made around the league, if you look at the top contenders in the NFC, the Rams didn't make a trade. The Bucs didn't make a trade. The Lions didn't make a trade. Seattle traded for Rashid Shaheed from Seattle. Or from New Orleans, excuse me. Dallas made a trade, which was weird because their season is on the brink. They traded for Logan Wilson. They picked a defender up from the only defense that was worse than theirs. And they traded a first round pick and a second round pick this year, and their first round pick next year to the Jets for Quinnen Williams. I didn't understand the moves Dallas made. If they would have won on Monday night against Arizona, I would have understood it more, but they didn't win. They lost. And so, and they're 3 games back in the division now. They're on their bye this week. They get the Raiders and then they get us. So like they're potentially be 4 or 5 and 1 or whatever it is, heading into the game against the Eagles in a couple of weeks. But I was still, it didn't make much sense. And look, it's not going to help their secondary. Did you see what Marvin Harrison Jr. did to DeRon Bland? Like their secondary, and even getting Diggs back. Diggs hasn't been good whenever that may be, if he even does come back. I mean, teams are still going to be able to throw the ball on them. I don't know why they made the moves they made, and they should have kept the picks probably, and held out faith for what can happen in the draft. I get it. Quinnen Williams is a decent interior, but he also played on the Jets, and their run defense wasn't very, very good either. So who the heck knows? But what were your thoughts on some of the moves made around the NFC?
Well, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, I think the team that I'm kind of just baffled by is the New York Jets. I mean, you give up like some elite talent in Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams, and you're just going to basically reset with what have been essentially called really not that great draft classes, 2026 and 2027. It's hard to look towards this early because obviously you have the transfer portal. You have so many things at play, the NIL stuff in play now, that it's hard to predict 2 years out a draft class. But the 2026 draft class is already notoriously not looking good as far as draft experts talk about it. I mean, it doesn't feel like they're going to. Yeah, it doesn't feel like they're going to get their quarterback of the future in this draft class. It kind of sounds like it'll be next year's draft class. They might be able to get it, but I mean, they have the draft capital now to maybe do something. But then they kept Breece Hall, and they're obviously not going to re-sign him in the offseason. And the moves just felt so ass backwards for the Jets. But I mean, what should we expect anything different from Woody Johnson and them? I agree with you. The Dallas Cowboys, they still have a chance. I don't know if It's hard to say if if they still have a chance at the division, but I would definitely say they still have a chance to make the wild card. But it's the NFC's pretty strong right now, and I just don't see the Cowboys being that team. Like you said, their secondary is not good when they have all their guys healthy. And I feel like they're banking on when Trayvon Diggs comes back, when they get healthy, they're going to have a chance. They're going to be better. They're going to look better. And I just don't. You saw what they were doing when Bland was out there and when Diggs were out there. Bland and Diggs can turn a game by intercepting a pass or getting a pick six. They're flashy players in that way, but they can get blown up. Like you said, the Deron Bland almost left that stadium with no ankles. It's so baffling, the moves that they made, and just they continue to believe. Like, I would have kept the draft capital rather than trading for Quinnen Williams, to be honest. If I had been the Cowboys, you're in a spot where you can really see the rest of the season out, figure out your needs, address your needs, and you went in and you're hoping Quinnen Williams is going to be a guy like Micah Parsons that left. Like, Micah Parsons was the answer, is the answer, should have been the answer. I'm glad that they're making trades and making mistakes. I mean, you never want to see a player get hurt, but Jane Daniels going down really hurts the Washington Commanders. Their season already wasn't looking that good. The Giants are the Giants. They're planning for next year or the year after. Maybe. We'll see. So, I mean, it kind of feels like the Eagles' division to lose. And like you said, nobody in the NFC really made any moves that changed their teams. And while some of these teams are already really strong, and the Eagles looked arguably weaker than some of these stronger teams because we were still working through some offensive woes, and Jalen Hurts getting used to a new play caller and the AJ Brown situation. It feels like the Eagles came out on top and came out a major winner, especially for the fact that most of the NFC said, we're going to stay pat and we're going to see what we can do with what we already have. It was kind of interesting. It was a really exciting, to be honest, I thought it was one of the funner trade deadlines to watch, and there was a lot going on, but there was a lot of trades that I just left scratching my head. I love a good trade deadline with a lot of action, but I still sat there and was like, okay, interesting, all right. But I mean, it gives us something to talk about. And we all know, if you watch sports, boring trade deadlines aren't good for the sport. And the NFL has had some very lackluster trade deadlines. So this made a season that's been pretty good even better.
I think football, or the NFL in general, it's hard to have an active trade deadline because I think it's harder than the other sports because you have to learn an entirely new playbook. Baseball, you go out there, you throw a pitch. You go out there and hit a pitch that comes at you. Hockey, I mean, let's be honest, how many plays are there in hockey? Like, everybody probably runs the same plays. They just run it in a different way, I guess you can say. And basketball, again, how many plays are there really in basketball? Get open and shoot the ball. So I do think that the reason why that the NFL trade deadline isn't as exciting, granted, like you mentioned, it was more exciting this year, but isn't as crazy as others. It's just because, like, when you go from one, you go from, now for Jalen Phillips is different. He played under Vic Fangio for a year, so he has an understanding of it. But like, if you go from if you go from a West Coast offense to a spread offense, I mean, and you never played in a spread offense, you have to learn an entirely new playbook. While the route tree is the same, things are called differently, so it's a lot harder. That's why I think that the NFL, it's tough to do it within season. Rail says Cowboys are delusional. They still believe they're going to the Super Bowl. They always do. Their fans are delusional. It's been 30 years of the same mess. Also, I've never seen a team win the bye week almost as much as the Eagles have. They did. The Packers lost. The Lions lost. They made the trades. Like, there were a bunch of losses, and Washington lost, and they ended up first in the NFC. So right now, the Eagles are first in the NFC, and we'll see how things go this week. All right. Let's jump into this Monday night matchup. They saved the best for last this week, and it's going to be like probably snowing in Green Bay, which should be fun. And this again, why there should be no dome stadiums. I like to see games in elements, and that's how football should be played. The Eagles should never get a dome. The Buffalo should never get a dome. The Patriots should never get a dome. Pittsburgh,
Chicago
shouldn't, even though they are, because they're idiots. Should never get a dome. Play in the elements. But yes, the Eagles are heading to Lambeau. Uh, a team that lost to the Carolina Panthers last week. They gave up over 150 rushing yards to the Panthers. You would have to think that that might be the Eagles' game plan, but they're also getting healthier on the offensive side. Saquon's good. He's going to play. AJ Brown's good. He's going to play. They're missing Cam Jurgens. So we'll see Brett Toth, even though Willie Lampkin he probably won't be active this week, but he is getting healthy, and we know he's a center and guard. So we'll see what that could be. Are you before we jump into are you worried about Cam Jurgens, the knee injury that he has? He had the entire bye week and he didn't practice. He hasn't played in a couple of games, and he didn't practice at all this week.
I mean, I've been worried about Cam Jurgens and Landon Dickerson for the entirety of this season because both of them are clearly playing banged up. They both don't look like they did last season. I know this whole offensive line as a whole has not, but more specifically, you can dial into those two guys have definitely not looked anywhere close to themselves. And maybe the overcompensation by other people along the line is making them not look as good. Like maybe Jordan Mailata is trying to make up for the fact that Landon Dickerson and Cam Jurgens haven't been as good, and that's got his focus off of what his responsibility is on the outside there at the left tackle position. I mean, I think Cam Jurgens really needs an off season where he's not coming off of surgery and where he can really just rest and get back to himself. Unfortunately, the off season is still a handful of months away. So I would say yes, I am worried about him. I am worried about Landon Dickerson. This is a long season. This is a physical season. You have some very, very key divisional matchups coming up, which we know are very aggressive games. You don't have the easiest schedule coming up. You have like the Detroit Lions coming up. We have I think the LA Rams. The LA Rams we already played. But we do have some really tough matchups coming up, which makes it really difficult for him because when you're trying to get better and then you're playing these teams that are really good defensively and offensively, it just puts a lot more pressure on you and your body, and it's a lot more strain. So long-winded way of saying yes, I am concerned about Jurgens and Dickerson. I'll put them together for the long run of this season. There's still so much season to go, and they both have pretty much been laboring since week 1 of this season.
I'm not worried about Landon Dickerson anymore. I mean, Jason Kelsey said that the last game against the Giants is the best that Landon has looked all season. He looks like he's back to his old form, and so I think Landon's fine. It is about Jurgens. I'm not worried about Landon, and I think a healthy Landon makes Jordan Mailata better. So I would expect
for sure,
Mailata, Dickerson, and Johnson to be good. I'm still worried about Toth at center and Steen at right guard, but we'll see. And they're going up against
that's definitely why That's definitely why they pulled Willie Lampkin up. You can tell that they've also probably seen just about enough of Brett Toth, and they're like, okay, we're going to put this guy who we claimed from the Rams and created a huge stir of shit because apparently you're just supposed to let the guy go through waivers and get onto the IR because it's an unspoken rule of the NFL. But I mean, I think that they've seen enough of Brett Toth too, to the point that they also want to see what's Willie Lampkin got, and he does snap the ball. He can snap the ball, not just under center in all situations. So I think it was time that they put someone there to breathe down his neck a little bit and say, all right, you want to keep this job, you better perform to your highest level because we got this guy who's ready to come up too.
And we'll see if he even gets activated. He's questionable this week, but I don't think he will. The Eagles are going to have to make some roster moves too. BG is on the 53, I think he's on the 53 now, but like they still have to make moves for Alexander, Phillips, Carter, Nolan Smith, Ben. Like they still have to make a bunch of moves. You would have to think that maybe AJ Dillon might be out of here. Patrick Johnson's already gone. Maybe Matt Pryor.
Well, the Carter deal, they didn't have to make one because Mechie went in return, so they kind of had that
still,
one.
They still have to make a 3 or 4 roster moves. So that'll be intriguing to see what they decide to do in that respect, because like you think this is where you would have thought that one of the corners, let's just say Adoree Jackson might have got cut. I mean, Tank Bigsby is kind of taking over the number 2 running back spot, and Dillon has been inactive the last couple of weeks. You'd think he would be gone. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I think they have to make moves. They might have to make moves by tomorrow, but probably Monday. We'll see. So that'll be intriguing. Looking at the game though, we'll start with the Green Bay defense. Obviously, it's going to start with Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons makes everybody, you would presume, makes everybody on that defense better. Rashawn Gary, I think, leads the team in sacks. They also have Edgerrin Cooper, Quay Walker. So they have a lot of, they have a lot of skilled pass rushers that can get after the quarterback, and that can make life difficult for, for the offensive line and for Jalen Hurts in this game, especially like when you don't have your starting center. But one thing that we've seen over the last couple of weeks, that get into the under center game, maybe Patullo is starting to get into a groove with Jalen Hurts in terms of what plays to call. So I'm very intrigued to see what happens this week. And do they decide to run the ball? Do they decide to, when they used to do, when Micah was with Dallas, they would run pretty much their RPOs right at Micah and force him to pick. And wherever he went, they went the opposite. I wonder if they decide to do that. And also you want to get AJ Brown involved early and probably often. But just, hey, we didn't forget about you. We know you're still here. We'll get you involved and then figure it out from obviously the running game helps the passing game. The passing game helps the running game. This is a pretty good defense the Eagles are going up against Monday night.
Definitely, yeah. This is a really good defense. This offense has felt turbulent at times, but I mean, this is a defense that has not given up a ton of points. I mean, you look back at their losses, like you said, they did lose to the Panthers last week, but that was not necessarily the defense's fault. You look back a few weeks prior to this, they tied the Dallas Cowboys, they lost to the Cleveland Browns, they went to war and almost lost to the Arizona Cardinals. This is a Green Bay Packers team that Packers fans are very high on, and some of the national media has been high on them, but a lot of the national media is starting to sound some alarms on this Green Bay Packers team because they can make a lot of mistakes. Their defense can stand just like the Eagles, but the difference between the Eagles offense and the Packers offense is Jordan Love can make a lot of mistakes. We've seen him turn the ball over. I mean, he almost threw that interception in the end zone. If it was who was JC Horn that just had to make that catch in the end zone, the interception there. We've seen him throw some absolutely wild balls in situations where they really didn't have to be, and now he loses his top pass catcher. That's going to make things really interesting. So I do agree on the point that this Green Bay Packers defense is very good. They're going to have to mix this game up to the best of their ability, the Eagles, and try and find some weak points. Like you said, they gave up 160 rushing yards to a combination of Rico Dowdle and Chuba Hubbard. And we have Saquon Barkley and a guy like Tank Bigsby, who you may only give him 5 to 10 touches a game, but he's doing the most with those 5 to 10 touches. Maybe you lean into that circumstance and potential sign of weakness and try and take advantage of it. Of course, in prior matchups, like this seemed like an outlier for the Green Bay Packers and their rushing yards given up, because prior to that, they only gave up 100 yards rushing to the Dallas Cowboys in that tie game that both teams put up 40 points in. So maybe this was an outlier, or maybe the Vic Fangio is watching the tape and sees a weakness that has been exploited that other teams haven't exploited for this Green Bay Packers defense. But I mean, arguably they've been statistically one of the top rushing defenses in the league, but something seems very off about that Panthers game. I mean, the Panthers weren't forced to throw the ball a lot, but we've seen the Philadelphia Eagles in their own right not throw the ball when they don't have to throw the ball. If they see a weakness that they can exploit from a rushing standpoint, they'll rush the ball for the majority of a football game and try and take advantage of that weakness and not even worry about a pass and attack. But I think having a good mix is going to help, because I do feel like based on the the history of this, how many rushing yards and how bad this Russian defense is getting picked on, it's not often. So it feels like they'll quickly find a way to close up the gaps if they need to in a pinch. So I think it's going to be really important that Patullo continues to work some of the magic of the things that have been working. Devontae Smith, AJ Brown's going to be back, but Devontae Smith feels like he's been such a massive part of this offense. Obviously, he's been the quiet assassin for this offense, and I think that it's going to be important to find a way to mix things up and make sure not to just lean into the Russian attack. Use other aspects of this offense, despite what you may have seen against Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, looking at the secondary for Green Bay, their top corner is Keyshawn Nixon. We know he has speed, but I mean, if he's covering AJ Brown should be able to physically be able to beat him. But obviously he's gonna have to be given the ball. Carrington Valentine. I mean, I don't see how those two corners can cover our two receivers. Obviously, it will depend on the Eagles' offensive line if they're able to give Jalen time. And then you have to obviously be worried about Xavier McKinney. McKinney had a pick or two. I think it was a pick. I know he had one pick in the opener last year in Brazil. And he had a stretch last year where I think he had an interception in 5 or 6 straight games. He coming off the Giants. It was somebody else that I wanted the Eagles to pick up when they signed Saquon. Get Xavier McKinney, and we can have solidified the safety position. He's really good. So that, I mean, it's going to be a really interesting battle. The Eagles offense had their best game against the Giants, obviously, and then going into the bye, they've had 2 weeks off. We'll see what different variations of the offense they put in there over the bye week to try to get AJ involved more or to get the running game going. And I think with the offensive line getting healthier, we saw them starting to pull guards and tackles and even Toph a little bit, getting them out in front, and that was able to open up huge holes for both Saquon Barkley and Tank Bigsby. We'll see if they continue with that. Obviously, the under center stuff for the Eagles offense opens up the passing game, because now they're not being as predictable. It was for the longest time when they were under center, they were just handing it off. When they were in certain formations, they were doing certain things. It was like 99% of the time they were doing something depending on the formation. Now they've started to break those tendencies. They have to continue to break those tendencies. And you have to think that maybe Green Bay was looking past the Panthers, because now obviously they would never admit it because of the game coming up. But the Eagles get an extra day because after the bye, so we'll see if they're able to come in fresh. Obviously, everybody but Juergens is going to be available. We'll see how things go. Going to the offensive side of the ball for Green Bay, obviously led by Jordan Love, who is I'm trying to think. He's a good quarterback, but he's also inconsistent. I mean, there are throws he makes, and you're like, damn, that's a franchise throw. Then there are throws he makes, and it's like, damn, bro, what are you doing? So that's if the Eagles if Jalen Phillips, Nolan Smith, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, all these guys, if they can get pressure on Jordan Love and force him to throw a ball sooner than he wants to, give the secondary, give Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, even Zach Bond, give these guys an opportunity to go after and get the ball and set up the offense with great field position.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, when I look at the stats, Jordan Love only has 3 interceptions on the season, but like in every game, you can almost say that should have been a pick, that should have been a pick, that should have been. Just looking back at the Panthers game last week with that end zone pick, the throw that should have absolutely been a pick. He makes a lot of aggressive throws, and a lot of turnover worthy, questionable decisions. And I feel like we have the secondary, obviously outside of CB2, which could still remain a question mark. But obviously we have a secondary that's been able to force turnovers, and make and capitalize on the mistakes that have been made by teams quarterback. So hopefully they're able to do, and with this newfound Russian attack, Nolan Smith probably being back, plus Jalen Phillips being in the mix, maybe we can start to see that edge room show a little something more and get some pressure. And obviously any pressure is welcome pressure for this Eagles defense, and also would be huge in throwing Jordan Love off his game a little bit more. So I think the biggest thing here, the biggest factor is going to be, can you rattle Jordan Love enough to make some mistakes, make some off throws, and take advantage with some takeaways? I think there was a stat out there, I think it was Dan Orlovsky that shared it, 19 takeaways for the Eagles this year, 63 points coming off those takeaways. It's one of the best numbers in the league for points off of takeaways. So obviously it continues to be a major thing. Force the turnovers, get the takeaways, and take advantage of the takeaways that you get. And the Eagles are going to win football games that way. The Russian defense hasn't been all that great. Josh Jacobs, this Green Bay Packers team, likes to rush. You have to think with Kraft going down that they're probably going to lean into Josh Jacobs some more. And hopefully our Russian defense can clamp up a bit, especially knowing that the edges may not be as easy to pick apart. Hopefully, just getting back to basics, making those tackles, making those plays, because when we're making those, just the basics, when we're forcing turnovers, making our tackles, keeping the play in front of us, that's when the Eagles have looked the best, and it allows the offense to be more comfortable, the defense to be more comfortable. And this feels like a team that you could get the Green Bay Packers that are going to drop 40 points on you, like they did against the Dallas Cowboys. Of course, Dallas Cowboys defense way different than the Eagles, but just shows the firepower capabilities. Or you could be the one, you have the chance to get the Packers in a situation where they only put up 10 points, like last week, and I think they also put up 10 points against the Cleveland Browns. So there's a situation for the Eagles to really take advantage of. As much as I was high on the Packers last year. I'm still kind of high on the Packers, but you can see a lot more inconsistencies. You can see the major need for a true elite, like alpha wide receiver one in that room. Like they drafted Matthew Golden in the first round, and that was, finally the first round wide receiver pick. But it definitely looks like they just need to go in free agency and get one of those alpha wide receivers, because it's not going to continue to work for them. You can tell that there's the inconsistency because you don't have strong receivers. You have a good, but I would probably say Jordan Love is great, but not elite. There's a great quarterback, but not elite quarterback who could use a wide receiver one that can push him over the top. This just feels like, we're talking so down about the Green Bay Packers, but still a team that you can't disrespect, and it's still a team that's competing. It has some ugly losses. It has some things that you definitely don't want to remember about the earlier portion of the season for this Green Bay Packers team. But I think that, the Eagles are getting healthy. They got some new names in the building. They got some new players coming in that can be hugely beneficial. I'm excited to see what happens. But coming out of the bye week is sometimes worrisome, but I believe that we are 5-1 under Nick Sirianni coming into bye weeks, 4-1, whatever. 4-0. That's what it is. So we are very good. Nick Sirianni is very good at getting them out of a bye week and getting them right back into stride, especially with some of these guys coming back.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned how the Packers need, and I think going back, I think the reason why it's tough to we don't know what Green Bay team is going to show up because they're so inconsistent. Their defense is usually pretty good, but what offense is going to show up? How are they going to play? Like you saw against Cleveland, like we saw against Carolina last week. You don't really know which Green Bay team is going to show up, which Jordan Love is going to show up. But again, going back to the offense, though, looking at you mentioned Josh Jacobs, he's really good. The receiver room, they have names, they have guys that they can, with not having a true number one receiver, you don't know who Jordan Love is going to go to. Tucker Kraft was probably that guy who Jordan Love will go to in a big spot. But now that Kraft's not there, he can go to anybody. He can go to Dobbs. He can go to Watson. If Golden plays, three of their receivers are questionable. Matthew Golden, Dontavian Wicks, and Savion Williams. You'd have to think that at least two of them are probably going to play. But when you have this room that the Green Bay has, it's tough to pinpoint. All right, in this situation, we know where Jordan Love is going to go, and that's where the Packers can take advantage of you. And then looking at the offensive line, Zach Tom, the right tackle is questionable, and if he doesn't play, we'll see old friend Darian Kennard at right tackle, and being as the Eagles had him on the roster the last year, and going into camp this year, you would think that Nolan Smith and Brandon Graham and these guys know about Kennard and may know his deficiencies and may know his, weaknesses that they could potentially take advantage of. Again, I do expect Jordan Love, which a lot of quarterbacks like to do against the Eagles, get rid of the ball. If it's a 3-step top, as soon as he hits that 3rd step, he's getting rid of it. Whether it's to Musgrave or whether it's to one of his receivers in a screen game or on a short, slant or whatever it may be. That's the expectation of what they want to get the ball out of Jordan Love's hands and let the playmakers do what they can do with the football.
Yeah, definitely, because it felt like, especially last week when you were watching Jordan Love, the longer Jordan Love had, the worst decision he made, seemingly. And obviously that's not always going to happen, and obviously it usually shouldn't happen that way, but we've seen similar instances with Jalen Hurts. It feels like you just have to get the ball out quick, make a play, let your playmakers do what they do best. Like you said, Luke Musgrave is no Tucker Kraft, but he has had to step up in a number of instances with Kraft's injury history, and he continues to be a security blanket for Jordan Love. So it's not someone to just scoff at and disrespect, because that he's going to have to lean on a guy like Musgrave. He's going to have to lean on a guy like Josh Jacobs. He's going to have to lean on guys close to the line of scrimmage who can make plays happen with their feet, because that's what teams find as a weakness with this Philadelphia Eagles defense, with the most defenses in the NFL. The quicker you get the ball out to your playmakers, the more likely big plays can happen versus waiting for them to draw out, as we've seen with Jalen Hurts, as we've seen with Jordan Love. So it'll definitely be really interesting to watch and see what happens for Jordan Love, who his playmaker is going to be, who his security blanket's going to be, and if he makes that decision and makes those plays where he needs to make them versus holding on to the ball too long.
I will also say, usually when going into a games, the Eagles special teams, minus Jake Elliott and Braden Mann, like when it comes to the return game, they usually don't have the advantage. But last week, against the Giants, they did pretty good. Having Xavier Gipson back there is a big plus, and I think that he has made a world of difference for the Eagles. And the fact that he was stashed on the practice squad for so long never made sense. But making that change from Tank Bigsby and AJ Dillon and Mechie and whoever else we had back there to Xavier Gipson, somebody who's done it before, definitely. Because you've always mentioned like the field position for the Eagles. It was so bad the first 5, 6, 7 weeks of the season. They were like last in the NFL. But against the Giants, they had pretty good field position when it came to returning kickoffs. So I think the Eagles are going to have to be take advantage of that. Try to get good field position, set up Jalen Hurts in the offense in good field position. The coverage teams have been a little bit better as well. So, special teams is obviously it could win the game for one of these teams this week. So it's very important for the Eagles to just, be fundamentally smart when it comes to, returning kicks. And if settling where, if they're going to have to settle for a field goal here and there with the weather, you would have to think you might expect that Sirianni might risk it more and go for it on more 4th downs than normal.
Yeah, I agree with you on that point. You can definitely see that there's been a big change on the special team side. The special teams has been so important. Let's just face it, the kickoff is back. It is going to be vital that you have someone who can return the football and who can give you good, decent field position. We still rank 31st in the league, but obviously 1 or 2 weeks is not just gonna shift the needle that much. So, and of course, whenever we are punted to, it's almost 100% of the time a fair catch by Jahan Dotson. So, that feels like just the way that they prefer to. It is better than fumbling. He consistently catches the ball, and they just take the ball and the field position where it stands, which is totally fine too. But you got to have one or the other, and having the kick return game there and Gipson doing what he was doing, that it's huge to have the opportunity to start at the 30 through 40 versus the 20 through 25 that we were notoriously starting at with pretty much everybody else. And then it's not like Tank Bigsby became useless. Tank Bigsby actually became a very helpful piece on the offensive side of the ball for when you need to give Saquon Barkley a breath here and there. He's been hugely beneficial in that regard, and usually takes big chunk plays when he's given those 5 to 10 touches that he's getting a game.
And when you think about the trade that they made for him, it makes a lot more sense to trade 2 draft picks for a backup running back than it does for a kick returner.
100%. But yeah, I agree with you. I think we've seen there's been a lot of close games for the Eagles, a lot of close games for the Packers. I saw a stat that it was, if all 1-score games had the opposite number, what would the record be? And the Eagles would be the worst team in football. So that's just how quickly things can change, and they can change in an instant. So you need those. You need to take advantage of every play that you can. Take advantage of every yard. It's a game of inches. Like we've said it a million times, and the Packers would feel that very much so the same way in some of the losses that they've had and in some of the tight games that they had that could have gone either way.
Winning is the only thing that matters. That's all that Jalen Hurts cares about. That's all that we as fans should care about. So stop trying to split the team up and keep asking, AJ Brown about dumbass potential trade rumors. Like, just stop trying. Nobody hates Philly athletes more than the Philadelphia media, and nobody hates the Philadelphia media more than Philadelphia fans.
And I guess, I mean, in AJ Brown and the Eagles' defense, Diana Rossini stoked that flame every single week and kept saying an anonymous AFC. Let's just face it. It was somebody within the New England Patriots organization who she constantly went to and took the same story and ran it over and over. And a good reason why I don't pay for The Athletic. For 9 weeks, she ran the same story with the same source with a different title and a few different blurbs put into it. So, I mean, it's not just the Philadelphia media. That was purely stoked by a terrible reporting by Diana Rossini. Just saying, because obviously Adam Schefter stood by for many times saying he's not hearing the same stuff. He's not seeing that AJ Brown's going anywheres. And that came from a lot of other people in the media that they weren't hearing the same thing, and they didn't see how AJ Brown was going anywhere. So, I mean, just a quick rant to get that out.
That's fine. She's probably still gonna in the offseason bring it up again, because what else? She's like staking her career to that probably for some reason.
What's clicks, baby? The Eagles will click and react. Let's face it. We are a reactive fan base.
I like when we're boring and winning games, and that's all that matters to me. Let's move to our prediction portion. This is where we are going to give our players on offense and defense to watch, a key or two to the game, and then we give our prediction after we both give those. I have mine written down, so I can't change it. Connor, we are both 4-4 on the season. The Eagles sit at 6-2, first place in the NFC East and in the NFC right now. What are your keys to the game and players to watch?
I mean, keys to the game is keep doing on offense, keep doing what's been working, keep changing things up. Don't become predictable. Don't get back into those old habits. That's probably going to mostly fall on Kevin Patullo to continue to see what's been working and going well. And doesn't matter who's under center. That shouldn't make a difference, despite what we may presume about the fact that Brett Toth not being able to snap in shotgun may have been the difference maker for this offense. My player to watch is going to be Devontae Smith. Devontae Smith has been huge. I think he's top 10 in receiving yards, and he has some of the fewest actual receptions because of how big of a big play threat and how he has been this season. And through all the noise, he continues to be someone who Jalen Hurts has been able to lean on, and it seems they continue to have that connection where at times AJ Brown and Jalen Hurts may feel disconnected. And I think it's going to be important that you're going to need to lean on multiple aspects of this game and continue to just not remain predictable and use both facets of your game, your passing game and your rushing attack, to take advantage of this Green Bay Packers defense and to keep them on their heels. So obviously, if they see things become predictable, this Green Bay Packers defense is definitely going to make things happen. We know they will. Flip side, on the defensive side of the ball, it's going to be, it's going to be make Jordan Love uncomfortable, plain and simple. When Jordan Love is forced to hold on to the ball, that appears to be when he makes his worst decisions. He's without his favorite security blanket, his favorite weapon in general, Tucker Kraft. I mean, they have names, they have guys that can step up and make plays, but the key player is Jordan Love, and him being able to get the ball down the field to those guys to make the plays. And if you can make him uncomfortable, and if you can make him hold on to the ball, that seems to be when he's just going to make his biggest decisions and turn the ball over. The Green Bay Packers have one of the highest turnover rates in the league. I think a top 10 turnover rate league at 8% or something like that. Not all on Jordan Love, but it shows that they are turning the ball over at a significant rate. Which brings me to my player to watch on the defensive side of the ball. I'm going to go with Jalen Carter. Jalen Carter is going to be the one that has to eat those double teams, start drawing some attention away, and give an opportunity for Nolan Smith, Jalen Phillips, and some of those new names to get home and start creating some pressure and doing something that the Eagles have struggled with all season. So I'm going with Jalen Carter, and those are my keys to the game.
So on the offensive side of the football, I'm going with A.J. Brown. He's back after missing the Giants game, and I think that they're going to try to get him involved. And let's get a quick slant, just get him involved, just to show, hey, look, we didn't forget about you. And offensively, the key to the game offensively is going to be the same as it always is. Just don't turn the football over. Don't give the Packers short fields. That Micah Parsons, that battle that he's going to have with Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata, it's going to be big. And they're probably going to line them up over Toth too, to see if they can beat them up the middle that way. But Jalen does one of the good things that Jalen does, and he does a lot of good things. He doesn't turn the ball over a lot. Like, he has one interception on the year. He has 2 turnovers total. I think the Eagles have the least amount of turnovers in football this year, with only 2, if I'm not mistaken. They might have 3, whatever. But I know that Jalen has an interception and a fumble, and I'm not even sure if anybody else has a fumble. So that's the one thing that the Eagles have done a great job at is just protecting the football. And if Jalen and the Eagles are able to do that, I think they'll be able to move the ball. I also do want to see a drive full of tush pushes. It's probably not going to happen, but I think it would be hilarious. Just a full drive of tush pushes, take away pretty much an entire full quarter, and kind of rub it in the face. I do hope that there is, a big play that it's going to come down to the tush push. And, obviously there's going to be a bunch of Eagles fans in the stadium, and that it's going to get rowdy, with Packers fans booing and Eagles fans cheering. But yeah, so don't turn the football over. Don't give the Packers a short field to give them a chance to have easy points. On the defensive side of the ball, I'm going to go Nakobe Dean. Nakobe Dean is the heart and soul, let's be honest, of this defense. He changed it. They weren't that great against the run, and you've mentioned that, but I think having him at the center of the defense changes that. He's so quick. Like, there was a play against Minnesota that he had where, like, he hit the hole quicker than the running back, and tackled him in the backfield. That's what he can do. And he can get everybody in the right spot. He knows this defense. It's going to be, I get they drafted Jahad Campbell and they signed Nakobe Dean, they signed Zach Bond. They're going to have to find a way to bring Nakobe Dean back. Like, I don't care how you do it. Find a way. If you have to go to a 4-3 so you can play all 3 of those linebackers, next year, do that. But Nakobe Dean needs to be on this team. He is so good, and I expect Nakobe to have a big game. And I think, was it the Packers game or was it the Rams game he got hurt in last year? It might have been. I feel like it was the Packers game.
I think it might have been the Packers game as well. Yep.
So, like, this, if it was the Packers game, and again, I could be wrong, but, like, this is big. Like, and obviously it's not the same field because it happened at the Link against the Packers, but, like, just being able to come back and return and play against the team that you got hurt. And it wasn't nothing malicious. It was a freak thing. But just, for the mental psyche. And I think that Nakobe Dean is going to have a big game and get after Jordan Love. Like, they don't the Packers don't turn the ball over often. Like, I think they're just behind the Eagles. They're second or third in the league in least amount of turnovers. But again, if you get after Jordan Love, he did it last week against the Panthers. He just threw up a duck in the end zone, and it seemed like it was a mistake, but like right there was a Panther player. Like, if you do that and give your offense a short field, again, you can score, and it could be the first of 20 wins this game. It's not going to be a high scoring game, but I feel as if the Eagles defense should be able to, with all the new weapons, should be able to give their offense quality opportunities to put points on the board. Prediction time, Connor. Who you got?
Yeah. So, and just sorry, I misspoke. It's 6.3% turnover rate for the Green Bay Packers. So yes, they don't turn the ball over a whole lot either. Adam's Exploits, thanks for joining us. He says the NFL Network all but one picked the Eagles most headed at a 6 or less point win. So with that, into the predictions we go. I have the Eagles winning 31-27.
Wow, you have a high scoring game. I don't have as high a scoring of a game. I have the Eagles winning 24-20. It is going to be close. It's going to come down to the fourth quarter. But I think that and this is going to be like, the Eagles are going to have a chance. There's a lot of naysayers out there that don't think the Eagles are truly the best team in the NFC. They think it's the Rams who the Eagles beat.
Oh, you muted yourself, LJ. Oh, LJ's.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, you're back. There you go.
Sorry. Jesus. Of course, towards the end. There's a lot of naysayers out there. There's a lot of people that pick the other, teams in the NFC. The Eagles are going to have a chance to prove it over the next couple of weeks against Green Bay and Detroit. If they can beat these two teams, there's no doubt about it. The Eagles are the best team in the NFC, maybe the NFL. We'll see what happens, but I do think that the Eagles have a good opportunity to set themselves apart in the NFC.
Love it. No, I completely agree.
All right. Well, we will be back next week with a review episode and then get you set for the Detroit Sunday night game. We get a Monday night game and then a Sunday night game. It's going to be some late nights for us Eagles fans. As always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LJHarrell54. And follow the Eagles Pinpool Network on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and wherever you get your podcasts at Eagles Pinpool Network. Thank you for the comments. As we'll go out on Adam's Exploits, says it's going to be difficult to watch a close game. And of course, it's a Monday night. 1000% agree with you. And we can say this, we can copy and paste that comment for next week and change Monday night to Sunday night when we face the Detroit Lions. For Connor, I'm LJ. Thank you all for tuning in to the Kelly Green Hour.